Hello, this is Kelvin Simmons, a retired state of Florida probation and parole officer. And this represents the first YouTube video that I have prepared and made available to my audience. And the topic that I have for this video is, are you afraid of prison? In other words, are you afraid of going to prison? And if so, are you willing to try a period of probation to avoid a prison sentence? But first, let me digress for a few minutes to note my background. More than 30 years as a probation and parole officer in the state of Florida. I'm a retired U.S. Navy Chief Petty Officer. I was actually on active duty during the Vietnam War. That sort of dates me. I know I may look like I'm 45, but I think I'm a little older than 45. I don't want to say retired, but I worked as a college adjunct professor for a little more than 12 years, and I taught the criminal justice and law enforcement curriculum. I basically taught all of the courses during my tenure at the 3 different colleges that I taught at. Being that I have a degree in accounting, I've also been an accountant and a bookkeeper. So I understand a little bit about accounting. So now let's get back to, are you afraid of prison? In other words, have you found yourself in a situation where you have a case, so to speak? You've been charged with a felony. Let's get it straight, felony. Misdemeanor, the chances of you going to prison on a misdemeanor is sort of like 0. So we're speaking about a felony. And you're facing a situation where you need to decide, do you want to work towards your lawyer getting you a plea bargain with the state attorney that would be acceptable to the judge? Or are you willing to accept a period of probation? That's usually what comes from a plea bargain, that the bargaining is, the result is for you to end up on probation and not get a prison sentence, not even get a county jail sentence. So the question, are you afraid of prison? What follows that is another question. Are you guilty as charged? I say that because if you are not guilty of what you are charged with, then you may want your attorney to take your case to court and bring on the witnesses. Let them testify against you, and let your lawyer show or let your lawyer discredit. Let's go with that one. Let's allow your lawyer to discredit witnesses against you, their testimony. Let's do the discredit of their testimony. Now here's the issue for a person that's facing prison and they are afraid of prison. You may not have done the crime. You may not be guilty of that felony. But the state of Florida may, I say state of Florida, but whatever state you live in, may have enough of circumstantial evidence that makes it a little bit easy for them to get a conviction against you. And you may be one of those 5% of people charged with offenses or felonies who did not commit the offense. And I'll take a half a second right now to tell you, during my career, I encountered a few people who, in my opinion, they were railroaded a little bit. So that might happen somewhere in this country. Somebody might get railroaded, but normally, no, you're not going to get railroaded. So we're back to, are you guilty? So if you're guilty and you know you're guilty, you know you committed the offenses, and you don't want to go to prison, and you've never been to prison before. I say that because if you've been to prison before and you are afraid of prison, there's a good chance that the court might not want to accept a plea bargain. So you may be out the door from the beginning. You may just have to go to prison. So this video is based on the person who has never been to prison before, and they're afraid to go to prison. And I must admit, I can understand why they might be afraid of going to prison. I've heard some horrible stories about prison, and I was the probation officer. Yes, I heard them from people who've been to prison, who have told me true life stories of things that happened when they were in prison. Now, granted, I will date this. This goes back 20 years. 20 years, which means it was like 15 years into my career. So these are old stories, not within the last 5 or 10 years. So let's say you decide you want to accept a plea bargain rather than take your case to court. And the court, the state attorney and the judge, when I say the judge, I mean the court. If the court is willing to accept a plea bargain that will keep you out of prison, then you need to make sure that your attitude will allow you to get through that probation with all of those conditions that the court will oppose or impose. Excuse me on that, impose. I did not mean oppose, but impose. You want to make sure that you know what the conditions are going to be. Your attorney will let you know. If you're then, you find yourself in a mental situation where you are willing to accept the probation with all of the conditions that it comes with to avoid a prison sentence, then you need to make up in your mind that you intend to do whatever you need to do to comply with your conditions of supervision. Because otherwise, accepting the probation instead of taking your case to court and taking your chances of maybe not getting a prison sentence, you would have wasted your time taking the probation if you end up in prison anyway. So, I pause for 2 seconds. Okay, so you concur you concur, excuse me, that you're guilty as charged, and you consider yourself an individual with the proper attitude to successfully complete the conditions that the judge or the court has decided that they would place upon you. So here we go. There are factors involved in probation that you have no control over. None whatsoever. You could end up on probation with an officer, a probation officer, who has been on the job less than 7 months. And if the probationary period for that probation officer is 1 year, you will find yourself more than likely with an individual who is not going to be in a position to work things out if you have what we might call a minor violation. That particular individual needs to protect him or herself to make sure that they get through their probationary period so that they can get permanent status in their position. So you would need to understand that. You'll find that out upon your initial visit with that probation officer. And if that's the case, what that means is you don't get the slip. You want to look for banana peels. Yes, you want to look for the banana peels. So if there's one there, you don't want to step on it. Because if you step on it, you're going to be on your own. When you slip and you fall, you're going to hit the floor. And whatever you break, it's just going to be broken. And you're going to be the one that have to pay the price. So your lucky day when you find yourself on probation supervision, yeah, that a lucky day. Well, if you're afraid of prison, that might be your lucky day. The lucky part of it to me is when you get to the probation officer's office and you meet that individual, male or female, you learn that it's a career officer who has been on the job 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years. Yes, that may seem that they might write you up, do violation reports on you quicker, but that means that's a seasoned officer. if that officer is in a position where they need to do a report on you, expect that that officer is going to be doing it fair. They may even help you out a little bit because they're not on a probationary period. So they know the rules also. They have learned the judges. I know I did. I knew which judges would allow me to do this for the person. I knew which judge would disallow it. Isn't that interesting? It's called studying the judges. That's what I call it. While you're sitting in the courtroom, don't get bored. I'm talking to you, the probation officer. Don't get bored. Study them. And study the attorneys, the defense, and the prosecution. And I'm saying all this to say that experienced officer is the one that more than likely is going to be to your advantage. Now, something that you have no control over, the probation officer has no control over, the state of Florida has no control over, is the public climate, meaning how the public is viewing probation at the time when you find yourself on probation. If the public outcry is, why are we putting these people who commit felonies on probation when we should just send them where they belong, prison? If that's what they're doing, then I'll say this. Make sure you're looking for those banana peels, because with a public outcry like that, it's going to seem like there are banana trees around. And the peels are all, like the monkeys have already eaten the bananas, and the peels are on the ground. So I'm going to leave you with this. The majority of what you're going to need to stay out of prison is a positive attitude. How about that? It doesn't take that much. A positive attitude. I would like to ask that those who are viewing the video and you think you just might want to watch me with some more content, even if it's just to learn if I actually know anything in particular, or if I just put this shirt on and I'm telling you that I'm this and I'm that and there's no truth to it. I'm asking that you consider subscribing. You might even be my first subscriber, unless my wife jump on there and make herself the first subscriber. But let's hope she don't do that and wait and give somebody else the opportunity. But just a final note, that in the following ensuing videos that I plan to submit for your viewing, I will be taking stories from books that I have published. They are available on Amazon. And as you can see, this first one I'm showing you, Freedom or Jail, kind of ties in with, are you afraid of prison? Would probation be better for you? But back to the title, Freedom or Jail, Experiences of a Career Probation and Parole Officer. That's one of my books that I plan to take stories and information from. My other book is more of my background, how I grew up and how I ended up being a probation officer. And it has some stories in there about probation and parole that the regular person might find interesting. This one is called Confessions and Life of a Black Probation and Parole Officer. Interesting. But me, my favorite is my first book. So I'm going to say bye for now and thank you for your time.